So let's move on to discuss sale and leaseback transactions. The sale and leaseback transactions life has been easier now because we are doing it from the lessee's perspective. Lessee's perspective life is easier now because there was an operating lease and finance lease, sale and leaseback for operating lease, sale and leaseback for finance lease. Now it is one thing, sale and leaseback for right of use asset, whether operating or finance doesn't matter now. The only thing we need to be careful about now is just give me one. So when I talk about sale and leaseback, depending on, as we discussed, like in IFRS 15 leasing arrangements, in IFRS 15 revenue from contracts with customers, there was a repurchase agreement wherein it was either turning into a leasing arrangement or whether it was into a financing arrangement. So this has a direct relationship with sale and leaseback transactions. That if it meets the criteria of a sale under IFRS 15, we consider it as a sale, and then depending on whether it is a leasing arrangement or financing arrangement, we'll do the next part. So either the transfer is a sale or either the transfer is not a sale. If the transfer is not a sale, then it is clear-cut financing arrangement wherein there is no movement of asset. There is no movement of asset. Asset simply acts as a collateral for a secured loan. So if the transfer is not a sale, will simply mean that there is a money being borrowed and there is a corresponding liability for it. But if transfer is a sale, there will be three conditions to it. At market terms, below market terms, or above market terms. Market terms here means fair value. That when we arrive at the fair value of this sale, if the sale is happening at market terms at fair value is the price. Fair value is the price paid or received in an orderly transaction between market participants on the measurement date. So if the sale is at market term means, suppose there is a carrying value of an asset, carrying amount of an asset which is 600,000. The market value of the asset, market value of this is 700,000. Sales price is also being decided at 700,000. The present value of minimum lease payments, is decided at 2,50,000. What do you think should be the right of use? What will be the value of rights of use to be recorded in the balance sheet, and how much is the gain or loss on sale of the asset? These are the two questions we need to answer. So how much is the total gain on this? The carrying amount is 600,000, sales price is 700,000. Total gain on this. Total gain on this is sales price minus carrying amount is the total gain. Total gain is 700,000 minus 600,000. So how much of it will be able to recognize? Because if you noticed here, there is a sale and lease back for this amount. Sale and lease back for this amount. That there is a sale happening. At the same time, there is a lease back. That there will be lease payments over a period of time. And those lease payments over a period of time result in the present value today of 250,000. You sold something for 7 lakh, but you have retained back the right of use by paying 250,000 out of the total right of use of 7 lakh in the market. You have retained the right of use by paying 2,50,000. So how much of right you have retained out of the 6 lakh of carrying amount? How much of it you will be considering it as sold? How much of it you will still record it as part of your balance sheet? What do you think? There's an asset which has a carrying amount of 6 lakh. You sold it for 7 lakh. But out of the total value of 6 lakh, you retained the right of use, and you retained the right of use by agreeing to make a payment of 250,000 over a period of 5 years.
So when it is a sale, it should be recorded in the balance sheet at the cost price, I would say. Then we have sold it back, and the present value of the payments is 2,50,000. So 6 lakhs minus 250 is 350.
6 lakh minus 250 is 350.
Yes.
So will we retain in our book at 350? Can I record it? But there is a market value and sales price also involved into it.
No, when we are considering it as sale, we are not going to book it on fair value.
We are considering it on sale because we have to see we are selling at sales price, means we are getting 7 lakhs into our books. The cash we are receiving today, is 7 lakh. We'll have to record this cash account debit, 7 lakhs we are receiving. We'll be retaining some rights of use out of this debit, and will also be responsible for some lease liability today. Lease liability will be credited 2,50,000. This will be agreeing that okay, we'll pay 250,000, but we have received 7 lakh today. There is a right of use to be recorded in the books. How much right of use to be recorded? And again, there is some gain or loss also to be recorded on the basis of the difference. There is a gain or loss also to be recorded because you have sold some component out of the carrying amount of 6 lakh. You have sold a component of 6 lakh, but you retained the right of use of some component for paying 2,50,000. You retained the right of use, but you have sold some component out of 6 lakh. Will you record some gain or loss on the sold component?
Yes.
In what proportion we should record it, and if we plan to record the right of use, what proportion we should record the right of use?
It should be the gain or loss. It should be recorded in the proportion to the amount which has been transferred.
In proportion to the amount which has been transferred means
the right transfer.
7 lakh. Market value or sales value in this case is same. So this is the fair value. So in proportion to the fair value, it should be there. Market value or fair value. It should be in the proportion of market value or fair value. The 6 lakh carrying amount should be divided in terms of what we are going to pay, that is 2,50,000 we are going to pay. Can I use this fraction? 6 lakhs out of 6 lakhs. out of 600,000, 250,000 worth of right we have retained for the present value of lease payments, 250,000 worth of right in today's terms in comparison to the fair value of 7 lakh. And out of total gain of 100,000, how much we can recognize? 100,000 into, in the same proportion, 250,000 divided by 700,000. Out of the gain to be recognized, 100,000 into 250,000 divided by 700,000. So the disposal of asset will be disposal of asset credit will be the difference amount, that is 6 lakh minus the amount retained So come back to it. See, in sale and leaseback transactions, if transfer is a sale, then we have to look further whether it is at market terms or below market term or above market term. So there are three things to it: at market term, below market term, or above market term. So we dealt with an example wherein it was equivalent to market, and the situation was carrying amount was 6 lakh, market value or fair value is 7 lakh. The sales price is also, so I'll use the term sale at market terms, sale at below market terms, sale below market terms, and sale above market terms. So there are three situations to it. If sale is equivalent to market terms and if the carrying amount is, if the carrying amount is 600,000 and market value is 700,000, the sale is happening at the same price equivalent to market value and sales price, and present value that we own an asset which is worth 600,000, we sell this asset for 700,000. So what we did, we received a cash of 700,000 for selling this asset. So cash account debit 700,000 and sold this asset for 6 lakh. These are the two transactions we have done as of now. We sold away that asset for 6 lakh and received a cash of 7 lakh. This is first transaction. So if I pass the entry for this, it is quite simple. Cash account 700,000 and 600,000 for giving away the asset. This results in a gain on transfer of 1 lakh. In a normal situation, if I would have recorded only this transaction, I would have recorded a gain of 100,000. But out of a gain of 100,000, we have retained the same asset. That out of 600,000, we have retained the same asset by agreeing to pay 250,000 over a period of 5 years. We agree that will not give away the asset in its entirety of 6 lakh, will retain the right of use of out of 6 lakh by paying 2,50,000 in today's terms for the next 5 years. So how much right we have retained? If you've retained the right, we've also retained some of the gain on transfer. We have disposed of only some of it. So how much we have disposed of? Out of 7 lakh, we have retained the right of use for 250. That means 250 of gain is not disposed of. If I look at the difference, the remaining 550, 550, I've disposed of in that same value, 1 lakh, or I will not confuse it, we'll calculate it separately. These two amounts we'll calculate separately. This, this, this. As of now, let's keep it simple that there is an asset which was recorded in our books at 600,000, which we sold for 7 lakh. In normal scenario, there would have been a gain of 100,000 recorded. This would have been normal scenario, but scenario is not normal. This 100,000, we cannot record all the gain. Reason being, we cannot record all the gain. Reason being, we have agreed to retain some of the right for making a payment of 2,50,000 in today's terms. We are agreeing that we'll be making payment of 2,50,000 over the next 5 years. Now, the moment we agree to this payment, we also have the right to record an asset in the form of right of use. We also have the right to record an asset in the form of right of use because we agree to make the payment 2,50,000. How much of asset we can record in the books in the form of right of use? In the proportion to right of use, how much proportion? The proportion will be carrying amount of the asset, present value of the lease payments which we have agreed to pay in comparison to the total or fair value of the asset. Because we'll agree to pay this 2,50,000 in comparison to the fair value of the asset because there is no other mechanism to know its value. So the total value of 6 lakh, we have agreed to pay 250,000 out of the fair value of 700,000, that we have retained the right. The rights retained by us are equivalent to 600,000 into 250,000 because we are going to make this payment divided by 700,000. We have been successful in retaining the right equivalent to 214,285.7. So we agreed to make a payment of 250,000 to retain a right out of the total value of 600,000. We have retained the right of 214. So we disposed of 6 lakh, but we have retained 214,825. So we recorded back an asset equal to this amount for the right to retain. Now we could record 1 lakh of gain if there was no right retained. So if there is a right retained, the amount equivalent to right retained, we cannot record a gain. Only for the gain on rights transferred, we can record rights transferred, we can record a gain or loss. And how much is that rights transferred? So this was for right retained. Gain on rights transferred. How we'll get to know? When we know the total gain. Total gain is 100,000. That is 700,000 minus 600,000 is the total gain. Out of this total gain, there is a gain retained. Gain retained. Like we recorded the rights retained by us in the same manner, there is a gain retained in the same fashion as 1 lakh out of 250,000 divided by 700,000. 250,000. How much is the gain retained? The gain retained is equivalent to 100,000 into 250,000 divided by 700,000. So gain on rights transferred. Gain on rights transferred equals to 100,000 minus 35714. That is 6425285 is the amount which will be recorded as part of this entry for recording the gain on rights transferred. 64285. See, if I total up the value of all the three, it turns out to be the total of all the three is plus 250 plus the total of the credits equal the debits 700 plus 214. So this is how we'll be recording the entries the debit and credit for the same. Hope this is clear. Bhanu, Nitika, Manoj.
Yeah, I mean, the calculation is clear. What I think is this is one of the cases where right of use is lesser than the lease liability. Generally, in general cases, the right of use is a bigger term and lease liability is part of that.
Yes. So since I took some imaginary figure, just took some. So right of use is see no not necessary. There's a gain involved as well. If you notice here, the total value is 278,571.
Yeah.
278,571 means there is some gain retained as well on the right.
Yeah, but that relates to the assets sold.
Yes, right. So we don't have to be emotional in terms that is it small or big. We simply need to see that out of 600,000, how much we have retained by paying 250,000 over the term.
So this was in the back of the mind since it was discussed in detail in some other meeting. Yeah, so I was.
It could happen. It could happen that commercially this is not viable. That we may not agree to it.
Yeah.
Definitely, we'll definitely fight to. Since I took some imaginary figure, just and it can be that the right of there's an example in the book. Let me see whether it corresponds to it or not. So Banu, there's an example in the book as well, wherein they have just calculated the gain on disposal and how much of the gain has been retained. They have not fully calculated the right of use to be recorded. But if I put the same figures in the right of use, there's an example in the book of Waiton Company bought an injection molding machine for 6 lakh. The carrying amount was 5 lakh and they sold it for 7,40,000. So if they sold it for 7,40,000, 7,40,000 came in the form of cash The disposal of the asset was 500,000. They disposed it off for 500,000. Now, when they disposed it off for 500,000, this resulted in a total gain of 240,000. Total gain of 240.
Yeah.
Out of which they have retained gain of, in the same proportion. Now the proportion will be the fair value of this asset in the market is 7,40,000. So this, according to them, it was on equal market terms. The cash price 7,40,000 is equivalent to the fair value of an asset, fair value of the asset in the market. That's what has been communicated. If fair value is 740,000 and the carrying value is 5 lakh, the present value of minimum lease payment. So this is the present value of lease payments, which was decided to retain the right. 700,000 is the value of the lease payments decided. So 740,000 came in the form of cash, but have paid 700,000 to retain the right. So how much is the gain retained out of 240? In the same proportion, 240,000 into lease payments present value divided by 740. The gain retained is 240,000 into 700,000 divided by 740,000 equals to 227,000 is the retained gain. So how much is the gain transferred? The difference between 240 and the gain retained is the gain transferred, recorded as part of the transferred gain. 7 lakh as part of the lease liability, 5 lakh as part of disposal of asset. We know the cash we have received. Now we are left with the right of use. The right of use, if I multiply in the same proportion, the carrying amount is 500,000 and we have retained it in the form of 7 lakh divided by 740. So right of use retained in the same proportion of 500,000 into 700,000 is the present value of minimum lease payments divided by total fair value of the asset is 740. So if you notice here, the right of use is lesser than the present value of lease payments. So it's not about higher or lower, it's about how much we are willing to pay. So right of use here is 472,973, which is way lower than the present value of lease payments we'll be making. So which is all about the gain retained, that we have retained a higher gain than the gain we have transferred because of it. Is it clear, Bhanu? So we'll see in comparison to what is the fair value of that asset in the market, how much we are willing to pay against that amount. The fair value of the asset in the market is 740,000. How much we are willing to pay against that? We are willing to pay 7 lakh against that. So how much of the total carrying amount we have retained? We have retained out of 5 lakh, if you notice, we have retained majority of it, 472, because the value was only 5 lakh. And we are ready to pay more than that. Is the new situation in the market, because the carrying value is 5 lakh and we are paying 7 lakh over the lease term. That in itself is there is a gain inherent in it, with sale and lease back. Is this clear? Because in practically we may say that why we will pay 7 lakh when we are able to buy it at 6 lakhs, maybe 6,50,000 in the market, when the carrying amount is only 5 lakh. So this asset was initially bought for 6 lakh. This is the carrying amount after depreciation. But that is still lower than the total value we are ready to pay. Hope it is clear. Hello.
Yeah, I'll think more over it and we'll get back to you if there's anything.
So another thing I normally say is that don't complicate things when they are not complicated. Keep it simple, that there is a cash payment received, we received cash, we disposed of an asset for 5 lakh. Now the second story begins thereafter, sale and leaseback. First thing is sale, 7,40,000 received, 5 lakh, the asset was disposed of out of books. There is a gain of 240. Now out of that gain of 240, we have retained by saying that we'll be making lease payments of 7 lakh. The moment we agree to make lease payments of 7 lakh, at the same time we need to record an asset that we have retained the asset into a books worth 472. How much of the gain has been transferred and how much of the asset has been retained will be in proportion to what is the fair value of the asset in the market, that is 740, and what is the value of lease payments we have agreed to pay. In the same proportion, we'll be dividing the carrying amount in terms of what we have retained in terms of right of use and what we have retained in terms of profit and what amount of profit we have transferred will be the balancing figures.
I mean, just I'll take one more minute of your time
Yes,
on
please.
this. It is if we keep the sale and the lease back entries separate. So if we say when we are selling off the asset, that is we are selling it for 7,40,000, right? And the carrying value of that is say 6 lakh,
Yes.
right? So we are making a profit of
1
1,40,000
lakh
from
over
that,
it.
right? And now this is a sale transaction has happened,
Yes,
right?
right.
Now we do the lease back transaction. So it is so now we have taken the same asset on lease and we are going to pay 7 lakh is the present value of lease liability,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So, but the assets which we have taken, uh, that is it is of 6 lakhs, right?
Yes.
So the right of use
So
should
we,
be
the
6
right of
lakhs,
use
the
will
present
be,
value of 6 lakhs.
yeah, present value of, so we agree to pay. So whatever, now it has gone to the market.
Yeah.
Now it has gone to the market. Market means the value of that asset is now value of the asset in the market is 740. Now we are going to retain the right in proportion to this now, in proportion to out of 740. We are kind of trying to retain that right. Out of 740, how much we are trying to retain the right? We say that we'll pay you 7 lakh. We'll pay you 7 lakh. For the fair value of an asset, we will pay to retain right. The value of that asset in the market is 740, but we are saying that we'll pay you 7 lakh to retain the right. So this is the fraction which we will apply to the carrying amount in the books, because we are saying that out of the asset which we were carrying in the books, now we have retained a portion of it. And how much we have retained? The carrying amount in the books, in according to this example, the carrying amount in the books is 5 lakh. Out of 5 lakh, we have retained in this proportion, we have retained the asset out of 5 lakhs worth of value. So definitely it will be a proportion of, it will be a proportion of this amount. It will be a proportion of carrying amount. It cannot go higher than that. And if it is a proportion of carrying amount, in what proportion? In proportion to what is the fair value in the market and what we are willing to pay. So this is simply acting as a fraction to use to know how much we are going to retain. 500,000 in the proportion of we are ready to pay 7 lakh out of 740. If we would have paid 100%, we would have retained the asset 100%. But we paid a fraction of it, that we paid 7 lakh out of total value 740. So we retained how much? We retained an asset worth equivalent to 5 lakh into 700,000 divided by 740,000. So we said that the right of use we have retained is worth 472 out of the 5 lakh. So the carrying value of the asset which was recorded in the books at 5 lakh is replaced with the right of use of 472. Hope it is clear now.